Ladies and gentlemen, today a review of John Wick Chapter 4. Before I begin, I'm going to read a synopsis from IMDb. John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table, but before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against new enemies with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. Not gonna bury the lead here. I absolutely loved this movie. Most of the John Wick movies are really just about John Wick kind of moving in the world and trying to get away from everyone and trying to not be the guy that everyone wants him to be, except for the first one. The first John Wick was really this movie about letting you know who this guy was and what he was doing and why he was doing it, and you really felt for him. You really felt for the character of John Wick in that first movie. The last two really were just about him fighting a whole bunch of foes in really fantastic fashion, and those were great. I genuinely love those two movies as well. But I like this movie a little better than those two, and I think the first one is still my favorite. But John Wick 4 does something those last two just didn't do for me. Made John Wick a little bit more of a character because of the introduction of characters into this franchise that give a little bit more depth to the character of John Wick. Donnie Yen is a new addition to the John Wick franchise in this movie, and he is a complete standout. I've seen his work throughout a bunch of movies he's done before, and it is really humbling to see that he is doing some really good work in some American cinema. I do hate that he's being typecast as a blind martial artist, but other than that, he does a lot to add to the gravity of this movie. That's not to say that there isn't some problems with this film. The plot definitely does weigh itself down with kind of really trying to tell you exactly what's going on in the world and why things are happening and the exposition dumps that happen because of it much. But what these movies are about, this movie does better than most of the other ones, and that is action. Just pure, unadulterated action. This is a tour de force, an action epic to beat all other action epics. At nearly 3 hours, this movie has an almost 20-minute long fight sequence. This movie has an almost 10-minute long driving sequence. It is incredible that Keanu Reeves is still doing this high-flying action at his age. The man is almost 60. He is doing incredible things on screen and still commanding an amazing box office. This movie, opening weekend, has done better than any other of the John Wick movies. That is incredible for an actor. There's just not a lot of stars out there that do this kind of thing. I will say that this is a criticism of just kind of Keanu Reeves' role throughout the franchise. Aside from the first one, I really do love his performance in the first one. His performance is kind of whittled down to just a few lines. I think that I read this somewhere, but I believe that this movie has like the least amount of lines for him in an actual movie, in a John Wick movie. And it makes sense because this movie isn't really about delivering pathos of a character and delivering extraordinarily dramatic performances. This movie is about the action, the absolute beautiful action that is in this movie. And that is what everyone is going to watch this movie for, and that is what you get when you watch this movie. I once saw an interview with Keanu Reeves, and in that interview, he was answering a question about why he pushes so hard, why he pushes himself to do as many of the stunts that he does, and how come he's been doing this kind of thing for as long as he's been doing. And his answer was, and since this is not verbatim, but what he said was, the audience goes as far as he goes. As far as he pushes himself is as far as the audience themselves will believe that he is able to push himself, and the movie will be better for it. Because we believe that he can do these things is why he pushes himself. The more he pushes himself to do the things he's doing, the more we will believe that he's doing it, and the more it is believable in the movie. And he gives his body, soul, and mind to this film, to these films, to the thing that he does. And I just have to give big applaud. I have to just applaud Keanu Reeves for the work that he has done. It is staggering, the kind of physically demanding thing that he is doing for these films. This is definitely one of the most beautiful John Wick films. The production design, just every single fight sequence in of itself, and the way that it's built, and the way that the settings themselves are also characters within those fight scenes is just incredible. There is a fine-tooth comb with the way the production design has gone through to make those scenes as unique as they are for each of the sequences. There's this really amazing car sequence that happens in the middle of the movie. It is unlike something I've ever seen in my life. And there's a fight scene in a club which is incredibly just gigantic affair, which you could just see millions of dollars were just made to make this production design. It's just incredibly beautiful. I mentioned Donnie Yen at the top here, and I have to say this is one of the biggest reasons I really like this movie as well. This movie introduces new characters that fill out the world and let you understand what's going on better and give you a little bit more of a connection to the world. The last two John Wick movies I felt were just a little bit too cold in that they were just about John Wick fighting through a force and also kind of traversing this underworld where you figure out what's going on through the things that he's trying to do. And in this one, they did a lot to introduce characters that had meaning and carry the plot through towards the end. And that's not to say that this is some of the most incredible acting you've ever seen. This is not an Oscar-winning picture, though I have to say, the absence of a stunt Oscar is just a travesty, and it is a movie like this that really makes me think that that is just such an omission that has to be unwritten. Seriously, the Academy, stunt coordination has been a part of the movie since the beginning. It is what has propelled some of the earliest movies. Stunt men and women have given their lives to the medium of film. Give them their day in the sun. The story and plot here really does harken back to the last two John Wick movies, and that John Wick is just trying to get out of what's happening. He's just trying to get out. Everything he's done, he's just trying to live a life, trying to not have to kill and maim his way to freedom. That plot is bolstered by a new antagonist played by Bill Skarsgård, who's definitely a standout here and definitely adds a little bit of extra menace throughout the movie. And you kind of feel his presence in the scenes he's not even in, because most of the people that John Wick is talking to always mention and reference his character. And ultimately, it comes to a pretty satisfying ending. An ending that I think is worthy of it being the true ending to this series. But this movie's doing too good. There's definitely going to be another one. It's going to be a while. I imagine that they're going to take their time with whatever sequel they do, but the studio is definitely all on board for another one. It's amazing. Keanu Reeves is going to be playing John Wick when he's 60. I mark my words, that is going to happen. I give John Wick Chapter 4 a 10 out of 10. An absolutely masterpiece of an action movie that has some of the most inventive action sequences and incredible set design that I've ever seen in a movie. I love that the story and plot of this movie is augmented by the addition of characters that actually bolster the plot. Donnie Yen and Bill Skarsgård are a definite standouts here. And I think the story and plot here does come into a satisfying conclusion. Some might watch this and say that the story is just there to enhance the action and fighting scenes, and I'm not going to argue against you at all. But what I will say here is that with the incredible action sequences, the filmmakers here did do their due diligence to make sure that the plot was coherent and that you did care for some characters, especially some of the incredible new additions. And the last thing I want to say is Oscars, it is time to introduce a stunt coordinating award. It has been far too long that stunt coordinating has not had its day in the sun. Stunt people have given their literal lives for this medium. It is time to give them their praise in the sun, and a movie like this shows you exactly why their jobs are so important. An absolute masterpiece of action cinema. Not going to win an Oscar for story or acting, but it is going to satisfy your itch to watch something just fun and exciting. Thank you for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and if you comment, I will do my best to comment and reply back to anyone in a very timely manner. Thank you very much.